Here we go. Right, we're recording. How are we doing, folks? Welcome back to the Nightmare Cabin, and I am joined by Mr. Kyle Symons, to the guy that corrected me in the review, and he's going to be talking to us about the new album, the debut album from Kill Division. This is your first album in a while, man. It's good to see you back, and let us know. This is a little delayed, actually. I kind of forgot to mention that at the beginning. We was meant to do this just before Christmas, and then, well, Christmas happened.
Yeah, holiday, everything. So does life, work, everything else.
So yeah, I was gonna get you on around the release date and around before you did the show, but you've done the show now. Mm-hmm. I suppose that's a good place to start. How did the show go?
The show went well. It started with we were gonna be doing it with one drummer. Then he couldn't do it. Then thankfully we got Ronnie, Malevolent Creation, to actually do the drums. So we crammed a lot into a couple rehearsal sessions. It sounded great. We did the show. Show went well. We played with a couple local bands from around here, Curse of Three, World Eater. I know I'm going to forget the other two, and they're probably going to be pissed, but I can't remember right off the top of my head. But it went rather well. It was a lot because that was my first show in about, 2005, about 17 years. So from the time I walked off stage with Malevolent in Mexico in 2005, it'd been 17 years. So, but after the first couple songs, I got into the swing of things. It reminded me how much 17 years of age adds on to things. I'm like, damn, I'm out of breath a little bit quicker. I'm going to have to, get used to this a little bit more. The people that were there, they said they enjoyed the show. We played well. We're looking forward to, playing some shows in the future. But I'm glad we got our first show under our belt. We'll see what happens with some shows that are upcoming or offers. We hope that we can play a few more here and there.
So when you started doing, you did that stream, didn't you, with Gus Rios, who he was doing these streams during the lockdowns, and they were picking songs from certain albums. He was drumming, and they had someone else. Who was it he was doing it with?
Oh, he was doing it. Well, if you're talking about the host of it, it was Gus and a guy named Seth. And it was called the Gus and Seth Metal Show.
Yeah, and you joined them in that. Did this come from that, or was the project already?
No, well, actually, it was when they did a show with Napalm, talking about Napalm Death.
Yeah.
I contacted him afterwards. I was like, man, out of all the bands that you do, and I was like, you did Napalm Death, and you didn't call me to do the vocals. I know most of those songs backwards and forwards.
Yeah.
And he was like, I thought you were retired, because a while back he asked me to do some backing vocals for something, and I believe it was for the Create a Kill record that he did with the Repulsive Echo, which you're wearing right now. And at the time, I really wasn't feeling it, and I was just like, you know what, I'm done with it. I'm just, I just do my 9-to-5 job, and I just go home. So I really wasn't into the music scene or doing anything musically for anything. And and that's the last we really spoke of music. And then he did the shows and everything, and I was messing with him we got in contact the next couple days, and he mentioned that they were going to do a Massacre show, and they were going to have the current drummer, who was Jeremy Kling, who was in Massacre. Now he went on Human Condition, Venom Incorporated, and he's in tons of bands too, so I couldn't begin to list those.
It seems I mentioned this within Human Condition. I've reviewed both of their albums on this channel, and it was I think when I reviewed this, I said, it seems every album I buy at the moment has got Jeremy on it. It just pops up everywhere. He's even in Venom Inc., isn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, he's another guy that's just, if he's not playing for someone, he's recording someone, or he's doing live sound. So, and good for him. He's keeping busy. He's that type of person that always does. I never see him have any downtime, and so so we did that. We did that show with Massacre, and it went over really well because we were all fans of it, and it was great having Jeremy do the drums. And when we would practice, we would talk about the way music is nowadays, and I'd be like, man, I miss the old style of grindcore. I miss that Terrorize, Napalm Death, oldish Napalm Death style. I think it's missing. There's a lot of new styles, a lot of subgenres. Death grind, gore grind, grind, this grind, that grind. And I was like, whatever happened just to that 1989, 90 grindcore, brutal, true Terrorizer? And I was like, besides Terrorizer coming back with the last record, which, was more towards that era than their previous efforts, it wasn't, there really wasn't much going on. So we would talk about it, and then that's really how Kill Division started. What you looking for?
I'm looking for the Terrorizer album because I was going to get the artwork and make the point.
That's
that
one there, the From Enslavement that you got right in your hand. I was listening to that on my record player, because that's the trendy thing now is having records. So I got a record player. But I had that out there, and my wife comes to me and she tells me, "You're going to be so upset." And I'm like, "Why? What's wrong?" She's like, "That band out there, your album cover looks exactly like the one that you're listening to right now." I'm like, "Oh, thank goodness. That's Napalm Death from like 20 years ago or 30 years ago. We wanted to be that way." So, and, she likes heavier music, but she doesn't like, she's not going to sit there and go, "Oh, the Napalm Death record, that's me." So I'm like, "Oh, yeah." But she even noticed the similarities to it. So I was like, then we did it right.
Yeah. That's torturing me now. It was there. It was right there. A little Terrorizer section. I have them all together, and you know what I mean anyway. So, but that was what I was going to. But
I fully understand. Well, I'm pretty sure that anybody that's watching this knows what the Terrorizer record is like. So
it's just like that. What the fuck is that? As soon as we finish this, it's just going to go bing, and it's going to be. I was looking at it the whole time. But that's what I was saying at the time of the when I was reviewing it. I listened to it again today just to refresh my memory, and I love how it just opens with the feedback and then opens with that riff, and it feels like you're listening to a live gig.
Yeah,
it's and each song just flows nicely like a set, and it's just good bouncy. The problem with grindcore as well, I think it's gone a bit sterile now. It's very technical, very well produced, very those early grindcore albums used to be chaotic, but now they're really precise, and this felt like it was, just has that raw punk edge to it. And it's not punk, but it has that punk venom to it,
Well, that's the thing. And we've heard a lot of descriptions about that with our release too, is that it's got a lot of punk and hardcore, elements to it. And, we're very proud of that, because that's what was a part of that Terrorizer record. You had those short little blasts, like minute to 2 minutes. You don't need 4, 5, 6 minute songs, but I mean, you can. There's not in grindcore, I wouldn't say that, but there are bands that have those songs and do them well. And there's also, like you say, there's the grindcore that's around that these days, whichever genre you want to call it, is a lot more polished. It's I don't think it's really about the riffs as much, because it's hard for me to distinguish sometimes certain bands and the riffs. You know, you can tell that the guy's talented. You can tell that the
Mm.
vocal, especially the drummer, the talent's there. But it's just, you know, even though Terrorizer is mostly blast beats, you still have that groove, that bobbin head groove where you just hear it. Even Pete blasting away in the back, it's, there's certain riffs that just get your head like this. And I don't know, that was missing in a lot of the newer bands I was listening to. And
Yeah.
there's
It's, this has got good riffs as well, and it's even just got some, even just like a da 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 da. You know, it doesn't even have to be like a shredding riff or a technical or complicated riff. Just some good bars, and it has got some bouncy elements to it. It's got that catchiness as well.
yeah, it's basic. And speaking on some of the reviews I've seen, almost everybody starts off the review saying, they're not reinventing the wheel and this and that. And didn't want to do that in the first place.
Mm.
You know, I understand originality.
Mm.
You know, I know, a lot of people are like, with a lot of media, especially like movies, everybody bitches about, because they're just remaking the movies that were done 20, hell, they're remaking movies that were done 15 years ago already.
Yeah.
You know, so people, but for music, at least for me, some people go a little bit overboard on the originality. And it's, we weren't setting out to say, hey, we're gonna, we're going to put out something brand new you never heard before. We were just saying, hey, we miss this type of music.
Yeah.
It's that much. We think we can play this type. Check this out and see what you think about it. And we liked it, and we hope that other people do too. We didn't come out saying we were reinventing the wheel or some bullshit like that. When people come out and so that first, that upset me. I was like, of course we're not reinventing the wheel. The fucking cover looks like 30 years old. So, the music inside is going to sound 30 years old. And the only thing that's like kind of up to date is the lyrical content.
Mm-hmm. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, go ahead, man. Talk about whatever you want,
man. Well, normally, again, with these types of these album covers, they are political. And what I thought was quite refreshing on this one was that it was political, but it was kind of having a go at both sides, rather than a lot of political content nowadays, especially in music, seems to be preaching. Now, you've got your views, I've got mine, but with Napalm Death, for example, I don't feel like Napalm Death are putting it there, and they're just there to make you think, and you can take or leave it. A lot of bands today seem to be pointing a finger and preaching to you. This one, you seem to have, you've gone back to that as well. You've kept it pretty neutral and kept it like no one's innocent in all this, and both are as bad as each other in a lot of ways,
Well, I will say for this, I just saw Napalm Death a few months back. And we live in Florida. If anybody's familiar with Florida, we have Governor DeSantis. He he makes some decisions that people like or people don't, because it's right. And I can tell you that Barney was definitely that was the first time I've seen a band in a while. He really went off against the governor of Florida. And he made it clear, crystal clear, that he was not happy with the choices that our governor was making. I can't remember what he was talking about because it was hard to understand him, but he definitely was anti-Governor DeSantis at it. And some people cheered, some people booed.
Mm.
So he might be stepping out of the realm. He might be a little bit more vocal about where he stands, or where, at least where he stands. I don't know about the whole band.
Yeah.
But as far as Kill Division, we try, and again, I have to go on some of the comments that are online, like they'll say like, oh, they're Antifa core and this and that. I'm like, and people ask him why. There's two pictures of there's a picture of Donald Trump and a picture of Joe Biden, both with dicks in their mouth. So,
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. You're attacking both. You're.
but there's people that just they see the other pictures on it, and it's like, those pictures were a part of everything that was going on. If they and that's what I think maybe is wrong with the newer generation, the kids. I'm an old man now, so they'll they don't want to read anything. Everything is quick. Everything is like a McDonald's. Everything is fast, drive through. You look at a picture,
it's a tweet. Yeah, it's a tweet. It's a sentence, isn't it? And that's it. Yeah, there's nothing behind it, no depth. Yeah.
Yeah, if there's, all they got is 15 seconds. And if it's not explained to them in 15 seconds, they're moving on to the next the next subject or the next anything. And it's if you read the lyrics, a lot of the lyrics, one of them's pro death penalty, and that's definitely not on the left side. That's more towards the right side. But then you have other songs that are about, that lean towards the left. So we try to, we're all, and me and Gus are the lyric writers. So we both have our, concerns and, thoughts and views and everything else. Not like extreme one way or another, but the second song that I wrote that I'm very proud of is called Surrounded by Filth. I work in corrections, so I deal with a criminal element every day. And I see a lot of them that, a lot of criminals that get arrested, but then get released and they continue to do crime. So I wrote that about the song, being walking around in a jail and everything else. And, and it says that most people will return and, they're doing bad stuff, but that's not on the far left side. That might be considered something, like, oh, that's a bad song about, because you're talking about, some people need to be executed. And, I just the way I feel. But then you have other songs that are about, at the time COVID was strong. So we have the song Thin the Herd, and it's kind of like a back and forth song because, it was when the vaccines were being released and weren't too sure if they were, if they were going to be worse than the virus itself. And, I like to think that we keep everything towards the middle. But like I say, something might lean a little bit one way or the other. But if you can't get it through someone's head in 15 seconds these days, they just move on. If they can't find out on that first headline of Google or that first video of TikTok in 15 seconds, they don't know. They just move on. They've already
have a bit of nuance. Yeah. But well, I think there was one political view I saw on there that did disturb me. The band is pro Megatron. And,
oh yeah, we love Megatron.
You are Decepticon voters, and you should be shamed. It's Optimus Prime all the way. And
trust me, if you had Gus on right now, actually that was Gus's song. He was like, he was like doing. And at first it was called All Hail Megatron. And I was like, man, I was like, Gus, I was like, really? A whole song about fucking Megatron? And he was like, well, it has Megatron in it, but it's about having tyrannical leaders. And, he was like, there are leaders around this world right now that swing the fist just like Megatron did. And, but I'm just putting a Transformer, a Decepticon edge on it. And I was like, all right. And it actually came out really good, I think. And then, but you talk to Gus, he's an Optimus Prime fan, but he's also a fan of Transformers and Megatron too. But trust me, that guy loves Optimus Prime. It's ridiculous. So he's got tattoos of Transformers on him and everything. So
yeah, well, I think all of our generation were traumatized by that film when Optimus Prime.
Well, you know what?
I was worried about giving away a spoiler. Then it's like, no, it's been like 30 odd years. When Optimus Prime dies. So,
well, you know that that film still hits Gus hard. He's like, fuck that film. I love that film, and not because of that, but I remember being 10
that's
years
the
old.
best soundtrack ever. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I got that soundtrack out there too, and I remember being 10 years old in the theater watching it. And the first thing that happens, of course, is Optimus Prime dying. Then you hear a cartoon saying shit. And it's like, it has all the things that a 10-year-old kid was like, you didn't know about. You got all the swearing, you got your cartoon heroes dying. The soundtrack was great. That movie is so good. I can't begin to like I watch it almost at least once a year just to refresh it because I'm a huge fan of it. So
yeah, definitely, man. Right, let's go back to the beginning then.
Right.
So I guess first off, how did you first start getting into playing in bands, and when did you start getting into metal and all that good stuff?
Let's see here. Well, I got into it with rock and roll first. A friend of mine, Frank, he played me AC/DC's High Hell when I was old. And, his father was a friend of my father. He was older than me. He was about maybe about like 8 years older than me. So he was a teenager, and he was like, we were all together at a family reunion. And he showcased, didn't showcase, he played an AC/DC album, and I loved it. And it was Highway to Hell. It's my favorite from them still to this day. And I got into rock and roll that way. And then you go to, whatever record store was at the time. Quiet Right was out with Metal Health. So, of course, that record. Then you get into school, and then you discover Ozzy, and that's how I got into heavy metal. Ozzy, Motley Crue, Guns N' Roses. Then you start finding out about the heavier Megadeth, Slayer, Anthrax, Metallica's, and I'm trying to how I got into death metal and grindcore was one day they have print media. And they had this magazine there, and it was called the Death Metal Grindcore Special, something from Rip Magazine, I think. And they had an article about Napalm Death, and it said something to the effect of this band makes Slayer look like a bunch of pussies. And so, of course, a 13, 14-year-old kid reads that, and they're like, holy shit, I need to hear this band right away. So me and my friends jump on the bus, take like about 2 hours of bus rides to the record store. The album that they the cassette at the time that they had at the store was Harmony Corruption.
Oh, cool, yeah.
So pick that up. I'm like, holy shit, we never heard anything like that before. It starts with that feedback and radio distortion, and Barney comes on. It's something I've never heard in my life before. And then it just started from there. And then you find out that just 3 hours up into the west side of the state is the death metal capital of the world. You start finding out about Deicide and Morbid Angel and all these other bands that are, that were local and that you could, that were up there, and you start getting their records and move on, find out about labels. And there was a lot of shows coming around South Florida at the time. And I remember going to see Napalm Death, Carcass, Brutal Truth, and Cathedral. I don't know how they got stuck on that bill, but I'm glad they did. I loved Cathedral, and that was during their Soul Sacrifice and Force of Equilibrium days. And
that was funny as well, because obviously Lee was in Napalm Death, wasn't he? I thought it was like obviously wasn't a fallout or anything like that for him to be touring. Yeah.
It's weird because he went from the fastest band to the slowest band.
Yeah.
And I love both of them at the time. I was in all types of music at the time. Death metal, if it went super fast or super slow, like I could turn around, and listen to Napalm Death, and go to Cathedral. You know, you go from Carcass, or you have a Paradise Lost, My Dying Bride. They were all good. And so we go to that show, and you know, I think about 6 or 7 of us crammed in a car, and you know, we were driving down to Miami Beach, and you know, being a dumbass, sticking my head out the window and growling at people. And somebody went, "Man, that sound really good. I want you to come and try out for our death metal band that we're starting." Like, get the fuck out of here. And I think it was Gus. And then we went and to a practice room, and they were just doing covers, doing, I think at the time, The End Complete by Obituary, and a couple other ones, and just started screaming over the microphone. They said it sounded good, and that's how I started death metal, and just started making noise.
Well, that's a good little segue, because let's talk about the first album. I've got to get my camera angle properly on this. Sickness.
Oh, okay, all right.
Ornaments of Mutilation. This is the Vic Records edition, so you got your demos on here as well.
Yeah, they didn't put the first the first demo on there. I wish they would have asked for it, but I don't know if Gus would have even wanted it on there. So it was mostly me. Oh yeah, most of those photos and everything is about around like the year 93 and 94. But we did 2 songs in 1992, and you know, we thought they were great, you know, but you listen back to it now, it's like, holy shit. But we were just 15-year-old kids.
Yeah.
No, so awesome. But you know, but to have it played on the local high school radio that day when we did it, we were ecstatic. You know, we thought we were going to be the next big death metal band. So,
well, if you don't think like that, you shouldn't be doing it, I think. You know,
for that record, it's got some good stuff to it. You know, we had a decent fan base at the time. We had a lot of good shows down here. You know, it's you know, we did it for about 5 years straight, and we put out that record, and like you said, it's got a couple demos and promos on it, and you know, there's some good songs on there. You know, Gus is a really good songwriter. He wrote a lot of that stuff, so you know, I'm proud of what I did in Sickness. I definitely I appreciate that time and everything. It was more of the gore, Cannibal Corpse style death metal that I was into back in the day.
Yeah, and it led to both. You know, you've gone on and done some cool things, and Gus is still going now. He's got a record out every month with a different band, and he's yeah,
he's
the start of it all.
Death market.
So from Sickness, you went into Hate Plow, which is a grindcore band, which was kind of the side project of the guys from Malevolent Creation. I've got this one here. This is the demo and US tour. Have you even seen this?
Oh yeah, that you know what, that was made up when we were on the road with Malevolent, but It has 1996 demo on there. Plus, it has a show we did in Detroit on Stormtroopers, and the SOD Soundman recorded us that night, and I think he was trying to get business. And that's us. And that was recorded during, or that picture was taken when we were doing the Only Law Survive. But that was the lineup in Detroit as well. That release, that name, it has killed me ever since they released it, because they didn't really ask us what to name it. They just put it out. And they're like, we're gonna call it Mosh Pit Murder. I'm like, that's the stupidest shit I've ever heard. I was like, you know, I'm like, why didn't they ask us what we wanted to call it? They just, the record company just had the demo and the live record, and they just went forward with it. And we get off the road, and we get a phone call saying Mosh Pit Murder is coming out. What the fuck is Mosh Pit Murder? And you know, but that was the demo that had Crazy Larry on drums, Tim Scott from Methane, and Revenant on bass, and Phil, of course, on guitar, Rob on guitar, and me on vocals. And then the live show, like I said, we did on the SOD tour, and the live show came out really well, and we knew we were going to release it somehow. We just didn't know it was going to be so quickly and without any thought or input from us.
Well, that leads us to the first album then, Everybody Dies.
Oh, Lord, yeah. Yeah, it's good old Phil holding the gun on the front.
So how did you get how did Hate Plow come about? How did you end up joining them?
At the time, Hate Plow had done a demo. They recorded a demo in 93 or 94 with Rob Barrett on vocals, Larry on drums, and Phil on guitar. And it was...
And it all kind of spawned from Phil wanting to play with Larry because he thought he was amazing. Well, he was an amazing drummer.
Yeah.
And he was like, I have to do something with him because this guy's, yeah.
Well, Larry was, Larry was like the Gus of the early days, because Gus and Phil wrote a lot of Malevolent stuff together, because they would jam all the time. They loved practicing. They loved jamming. Larry did the same thing. He loved practicing. He loved jamming. He just, for some reason, when Larry would get in the studio, he'd get nerved up. And it's like, Larry, why do you get nerved up in the studio? You're so, you're fucking sickest drummer. Just don't think about it. And he got nerved up for Stillborn. The tracks didn't come out right. So that's why they got Alex to come in and do it at the last minute to do the Stillborn record.
Oh, I didn't realize that. Yeah. Okay.
I remember seeing the video of Larry recording his drum tracks up in, I think it's Gainesville, for the Stillborn record, but there's no saved music tracks from it except that one demo that they put on Joe Black. I think it's Genetic Affliction, and it had Brett singing on there with the usual Brett voice, not the Stillborn Brett, but the Brett voice. And it just didn't, from what I heard, the tracks didn't sound that good, so they scrapped those and got Alex to come in and do them. So then I would come and practice with Malevolent. I would watch them practice. I would get done with practicing with Sickness and I'd be like, I ain't got anything to do. So I'd drive up the street and we'd watch Malevolent practice. And a lot of times it was just musical because Jay would be at work. So I think one time Phil just said, hey, do you know any of our songs? And I was like, yeah, I know most of all of them. I know every single one of them that you just played now. So he was like, well, jump on the mic. And, so I would start doing that. And I started practicing with Malevolent. And it would be me, Phil, John, and Dave Colross. And we'd be doing the Malevolent songs. So, over time, I would do that. And then Jay would come around 10 o'clock after you get off of work. Then he would practice with them. And Larry would be there some nights when Dave wasn't in town doing anything. So, Larry would do the Malevolent.
So this is when Jay was on vocals.
Yeah.
Right. So this must have been.
It was. Well, it was 95, 96. I think it was right after Eternal was recorded.
Yeah. Well, when was In Cold Blood?
97.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. In Cold Blood was 97. With it was it was before In Cold Blood, but after Eternal.
Yeah.
And there'd be some time, one day before they would go on tour, they would be in town, but he lived in New York. So, and I think he moved to Deerfield Beach and lived with Jay at some time, but it's kind of fuzzy around then. But I would just start practicing with them and they would say, hey, what if we get together? What if we get this band Hate Plow? It's just, we just want to make, fast music, write about anything, any stupid subject that we would think of. There's songs about hermaphrodites and this and that on that first record. It's because it would just be like some stupid joke we would think of in the warehouse. We thought it was funny, so we would just, record a song.
Arse to Mouth Resuscitation.
Yeah,
$20 blowjob. Anally Annie.
Well, I used to deliver food, and downtown Fort Lauderdale, downtown Broward, and it's not what it used to be. Like now, it's a real nice place, and you have all these skyscrapers and condominiums. But when I was delivering food, you go to work at like 6 o'clock in the morning to the deli. Um, you just saw a real showcase of what um, crackheads and prostitutes were. They would just be swarming the streets like Night of the Living Dead. And it's just every day you'd see people walking around naked. Like a lady was walking with no pants on one day, and you had these people following her and laughing at her, and I was like, Jesus Christ, but it was just that dirty. So, and those were the things that I decided to write about, because I would see it every day when I'd go to work. I'd see some foolishness dealing with that, and anything that was brought up or any story, or when you deal with some of the people we dealt with, going to practice or anything like that, you're gonna hear some crazy shit or be a witness to it, and some of those songs are absolutely true. So
Yeah, that was another section really of grindcore, is when they would come out with the most outrageous song title and or outrageous subject matter, where it would just be like, this how far we could push this. But yeah, so then you do another album with Hate Plow. This is with Dave Colros on drums, and I've not got an actual copy of this. All I've got is this promo copy. I think Costas gave me this from Repulsive Echo.
oh, okay,
Represent.
right.
And yeah, I think he gave me this one. This was in a package
Oh.
with one of the many packages I've been sent by the guys. But yeah, I can't find a copy of this anywhere, so I've ended up with this promo copy. So yeah,
I think it's getting re-released. I think it's getting. Well, I know they did a 3 CD thing with. I think I'm Back on Black Records.
I think yes, I remember that. Yeah,
And
yeah.
I don't. They're doing everything by singly. Like if they're doing just Everybody Dies and The Only Law of Survival, I'm not really kept up to date too much about that stuff. So excuse me.
I think it's like a double CD set thing, and all of them are together. Yeah, I think they did the same thing with Internal Bleeding as well.
Okay. Yeah, I haven't really kept up too much with that. I know that they were thinking about releasing some of it on vinyl, but I really haven't heard too much more about. But I love that record. That that's one of the the first one. People are like, you're singing about ass eating and and hermaphrodites and all this dumb shit. And everybody's like, some people like the first one more than the second. Some people like the second one more than the first. But it's a big part of that is because Dave is on drums. That guy is he's 1 in a million for drummers. He's just amazing. And I think we were on fire around that time when we were recording that record, because at the same time they were also writing stuff for Venom. So Dave would be, we would practice Hate Plow stuff, then he'd practice Malevolent stuff, and he was just practicing almost every night. And by the time he got into the studio for those records, he was crazy.
So this leads you then to, so you was on tour with Malevolent Creation. They recorded in Venoms. You did backing vocals on that album.
Yes.
And then things go south with Brett, and then you jump on board, and you end up doing what I think is one of the most underrated death metal albums ever, the Will to Kill.
Yeah, that's another good one. I think we did a really good job with that record. So
yeah, this is so good, and I can't not show it off. The Repulsive Echo Records reissue with the which is where I first spoke to Kyle. we did this newspaper with all new exclusive interviews with everyone involved in the album. And this is my favourite LP that I own because of that blood splatter.
Yeah, I think it's the Splatter Edition or Death Below or something like that.
Yeah.
And he Kostas really did an amazing job on that record. It just the whole packaging, the presentation, the sound. It shows that, you know, you can buy a record and they'll just slap something together. And with that one, he didn't. You know, he took his time. He made sure everything was right, the presentation, everything else. I mean, you can see some labels that put out stuff and barely any thought process into it. It looks terrible, but with that one there, truly.
And these were all new interviews, all exclusive for this edition. You won't see these anywhere else. So if you're a Malevolent Creation fan, this is essential. And I think it's sold out. It should be. Yeah, every song on this. All That Remains is my favourite. All That Remains and With Murderous Precision. But Burnt Beyond Recognition. The whole album's fucking terrific from start to finish.
Yeah, that was you know, I remember at the time because it was our first for Nuclear Blast, and very concerned because Brett was no longer in the band. So, you know, they're like, we just signed you guys and you got a new singer and everything else. And they were very worried. So we were like, we have to really, you know, kick some ass on this record. And I think we all did. Everybody put in their efforts. You have James Murphy on a couple guitar solos. You have, you know, you have Justin DePinto on the drums for that record. It's just, you know, I think everybody came in and we did it at Eric Rutan's studio at the time, you know, in the middle of Tampa. And you'd have times where like the lightning would strike and the power would go out. And, you know, I think during the vocals, there was no AC. So I would
you can.
I'd just be stuck in a damn room all day long, 12 hours with no air conditioning. And then your bathroom's a porta potty on the outside. So you go and you have to use the bathroom in this smelly ass porta potty. And then you go back in and you just constantly, you know, you're in this, you know, warehouse, which it was in a warehouse in Tampa. And you just go in there and sweat and, you know, do it again, do it over, do it this, do it that. And you'd start from 10 in the morning to 10 at night and take a day off, then come back the next day and do another 12 hours. It took me about 3 or 4 days to finish up everything altogether. But again, another one of those experiences I wouldn't have any different because I think at the time, you know, I had Rob Barrett. He was kind of like you know, he was my vocal coach almost. He was like, you can do that better. He would be, you know, because some people just say, oh, that sounds good. But some people know what you can sound like. Some people know that you can do better. And, you know, they'll say, hey, you can do that better. All right, well, let me just keep trying until we get one. So.
Yeah. So you did a live album with the band as well. Yeah. Conquering South America. You did there's a couple of DVDs here as well.
Oh.
I think I've got this one here. I think this is on one of these DVDs. I've got 3 in total. But I think, Death from Down. This is in Australia. I think this is with Brett.
That was Brett.
I think this one, there's 2 concerts on this one. But I think one's with Brett and one's with you.
There was one on that one that was in Paris. I think we opened up for Exodus in Paris. And 2004, it was like when you go over there and you do all the festival shows.
Yeah, there's one from 2004 and one from 2007. So yeah, I think one's with you and one's with Brett. And then this one I think is definitely with you.
Yeah, that was in Poland.
Yeah.
That was the first. Actually, that show was the first night of the Will to Kill tour in Europe, and we played in front of like 4,000 to 5,000 people in Poland at the Metal Mania Festival. Not our best show because we flew, however long it takes to get from the States to Europe, and then like a 3-day bus ride to get to Poland. So by the time we got there, they're like, "Oh, okay, well you go on in 2 hours." So we had no sound check, no nothing. It's basically just get off the bus, go and do your set, and So it's a good show, but you know we should have did some shows beforehand to get a little bit more tight and then play that show, but we didn't know
Yeah.
how big it would be. So
I like this DVD, and this company seems to film that whenever there's, I don't know what it is, but there's the company that I think did this. There's so many bands that have got DVDs on this same company, and it always looks like it's the same venue. They must just film everyone that plays there and just puts it out, whatever they film.
they,
Um,
I know that show had, they recorded Marduk and they released that one. I
yeah,
think recorded Vader and released that one. I think it was the same show we did. And the thing is that when he sent us a copy of it, we're like, man, it really doesn't sound that. It's not of our quality. We could have done a better show. So we're like, why don't we just wait until we come back to Poland and we'll do another set and you can record and release that one. And at the time, the guy was like, "No, I spent the money on the cameras. I recorded it. I'm gonna put it out." We're like, "We didn't sign a release for it. We didn't care anyway." And so next thing you know, Created Live is being sold. Like we go to all these shows and people have merchandise from other bands, records, DVDs, and such. And I saw that in there. I was like, "Oh, I guess we agreed to it." Yeah. I guess it doesn't matter. So I actually had to buy my copy. I bought it because he didn't send us anything. He was like, "Well, if you're not going to release it, then fuck you, I am," and he did, and put it out, and he never sent us any copies of it. So the one I have is one I bought at one of our shows. So
I think that's the that's the thing for every metal musician is either going to a record shop or going somewhere and buying your own because
oh
you don't get sent one.
oh no, yeah, that's what
The one
sometimes.
album I put out, I had to buy.
Ugh.
So
You know what? For some reason, especially lately, it's been driving me fucking nuts about that too. It's like, I'm not concerned about like, the money aspect. Hey, if you sell this record, that's fine, and you make money off of it, or that's fine too. I would like some, who doesn't like money because you need money to survive these days, But at least send me a copy of it,
yeah, I can.
like you're putting out all these T-shirts and this and that. I don't, look, I know that person's not gonna make $1 million off of it, but I wouldn't mind one just to throw in the like, hey, I did this basket or something like that. I have a
Yeah,
tote in my storage unit, and it's got a lot of the stuff that I would collect over tours, like posters and T-shirts and whatever crap they sold with our logo on it at the time. And no, I like to keep some of that stuff, but there's some labels right now. I wrote to them, I'm like, man, I was like, you mind sending me one? And the guy was like, sure, just send me such and such money. I was like, yeah, but I'm in the band, can I just get one? I don't want I'll
yeah.
and of course I haven't heard back from that and probably never will. So it's it it, it sometimes can get upsetting, and then sometimes I'm like, who gives a shit?
Yeah. So in total, then we've got 3 live shows with yourself on. So one in Poland, one in Paris, and one in South America. That's a fucking cool album. You might not be happy with this one, but it more than makes up for it then on this one because this one you're on fire.
Well, that one was, they call it Conquering South America, but it should have just been called Conquering Brazil,
All
because that.
right.
But we were supposed to have a couple other shows time on that tour, and they canceled some of them because of civil unrest. They're like, "Oh, you can't go over there right now. It's really bad." I think it was Colombia. I know they canceled Colombia. They said, "Due to civil unrest, you can't go there." And I was like, "Well, that's a shame because I've never been to any of those places before." So it was just a tour of Brazil, and that one was in Rio. That show that was recorded there, and there are some fans down there that are, absolutely crazy. South American fans, fans in Brazil, they, I mean, they live, they breathe, they bleed metal, and some of these shows that we played down there, some were good, but then there was others where it's like, wow, that's amazing. It's like you see how they react to it.
Well, I think Paul Di'Anno from Iron Maiden, he ended up fucking moving there, didn't he? He was,
Yeah,
playing clubs everywhere else. He's going out to Brazil and he's still a fucking rock star. Yeah.
Well, I don't, we would drive by in the taxi and there'd be these, 10 feet tall posters for Malevolent on the walls and everything. It's like, wow, that's amazing. And, you get to some of these places and, they just treat you well. And we had a great time there. I mean, the traveling was the worst thing about it because you had to take a plane to every show. So you'd have to get on a plane, and sometimes that plane had 2 or 3 stops in between because it's almost like a taxi. You have to fly over the Amazon.
Right, yeah.
So it was you get to play the show. You'd be at the club. 2 hours later, you're at the airport. You're on another few flights. Then you're back at this other part of Brazil, and it was we were exhausted, and it was only a 2-week run, but it was a lot of fun. That record that had Tony Lareino playing on drums.
That guy's a monster as well, isn't he? He played on the Nile album, Nephobia. Help me out, Kyle. Well, he's a drum tech for Megadeth now, isn't he? He's even played a few.
No, he is now the drum tech for Trans-Siberian Orchestra.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He did the Megadeth gig, but he's with the Trans-Siberian Orchestra. I think I'm pronouncing that right.
Yeah.
Plus, he did a lot of live shows. He was, he did Demo Borgir. I mean, just the list goes on and on that he's done for. I mean, I know he played a Megadeth shows when he had to fill in for their drummer at the time, and
I forget his name. He was in Lamb of God, wasn't he? Oh, fuck! What was his name? Yeah, because the guy from Lamb of God joined Megadeth, didn't he? Did the album, but he was because I saw Lamb of God and Megadeth together. He did 2 shows that night.
Oh,
it must have killed him. And yeah, so if there was any like cross that he couldn't make, he would fill in Megadeth for then. And but yeah, we've gone off on one there. But
yeah, Tony was. I mean, he did the tour that was on Created Live. He did that, which was Malevolent with Marduk, and Immolation, and then.
Did you do the tour where they toured with Bolt Thrower? Was you in the band then?
No, that was actually the first tour with Brett returning.
Oh right, okay.
That tour was my first tour that I was done for, and I had just got back from, and in fact, Tony played with us in Mexico. When we landed in Miami is when we found out that we were offered Malevolent was offered the opening spot of the Bolt Thrower tour.
Right. Okay.
And but actually being picked up at the airport by a guy named Dave Kincaid, who was the drummer for Malevolent on that tour. And he went on to do other bands as well too. I couldn't tell you. I think Soulfly was one of them. He was in a lot of bands too. He was, but I guess he didn't work out with Malevolent. Well, I guess I didn't work out with Malevolent since I was out by that tour. He only did that one tour and he was done. And then they got Dave back, and After that, I heard bits and pieces, but it's hard to keep up with that Malevolent timeline, especially when you're not in the band.
Yeah. Yeah. So you did a second album with the band, though, War Cult.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
this is another
it could have been better. It's got some good songs.
Yeah, I like it. It's I like the whole lot. I think my main problem with this album is it's in the shadow really of Will to Kill, and then you've got Doomsday X either side of it, so it kind of just either side of those albums you got.
Well, you know what?
This is one of my prized possessions, though.
Oh yeah, from the the thing we did for Brett.
Yeah.
It's I remember getting that, and to tell you the truth, we recorded the record locally. I don't even know the name of the studio, but it really wasn't a place where a lot of death metal bands recorded. It was found, and we did the record there. It was a lot of money. Nuclear Blast were putting out the money for it, but after a while, it's started to rack up, and it was just one of those places where, at least when we were recording at Eric's studio, you had people there saying, people more familiar with death metal, so to be like, hey, that sound, you could do this better, let's try this out, this and that. With War Cult, it was basically, oh, sounds great, moving on. It was self-produced by us. I also think we needed a little bit more time with rehearsals, maybe to improve upon the songs before we got in the studio. I mean, it's not a bad record. Of course, nothing bad when you have Dave on there.
Yeah.
And, everybody was playing good. It's just at least my thoughts on my performance. I could have been a little bit more. I could have been more prepared or better, but I could have used a little bit more time. But it still sounds good. But it's hard to compare that to the Will to Kill, because I think that record was just, everybody was on fire for that.
I think what I said when I did the retrospective with Darren was like, I enjoy the album while it's on, but a standout track I'd be like, I think that one's didn't really have a lot of standout songs, but while it's on, I enjoy it. It's one of those.
I mean, it's not a bad record, but
it's,
I think that most people, if they're going to listen to one or the other, they're going to listen to the Will to Kill. But some people come up to me and they're like, "Oh, my favorite record's War Cult." I'm like, "Oh, hey." Some people say the same thing about Stillborn. And I remember every time someone would walk up to Phil and say, "Hey, Stillborn's my favorite," the first thing he thinks of is it a joke? He did not like that record. There's some great songs on there, but there's a lot of things that went wrong and could have been done better. And in fact, when we were recording War Cult, we were starting to talk about re-recording the whole Stillborn record and doing it at a good studio, because I'm a big fan of that record, at least the songs on it. I was just like, man, if we had Dave on drums, and I'll do the best. Excuse me, I'll do the best I can with the singing. Not Brett, but do my best, and we'll try to re-release it, maybe put it out. And the closest they got to it is on Dead Man's Path.
Yeah.
They re-recorded 2 of the songs, which were the 2 songs that me and Phil always talked about, at least re-recording those of the record. And I can't remember the other track at the time being, but those were 2 songs that we were definitely going to do. We did them live a couple times. So
yeah, I think Suffocation it was a similar situation with Breeding the Spawn, and they for about 3 or 4 albums now in a row, the bonus track is always a recorded song off of that. So as the years go by, you'll eventually have the whole album. But
well,
so
I remember that one story. I remember Josh, who was the old bass player from Suffocation. He used to live in South Florida, and we knew him. And I think it was me and Gus were at his house, and we were just hanging out, shooting the shit. And he's like, "Hey, I got the promo for the new Suffocation, Pierce from Within." I was like, "Well, let's check it out." And we started talking about Breeding the Spawn beforehand, and he told me that somebody in Suffocation said they tried to remix it and remix it and remix it, and somebody said that you can't polish a turd. And that's a shame because the songs on Breeding the Spawn are great.
Yeah.
And when they re-recorded them, they sounded just ridiculous. It's like that's how it should have sounded.
Yeah.
But I think at that time you had Breeding the Spawn, you had Malevolent was Stillborn, and a couple other bands that recorded around that same time. And I think Roadrunner was trying to keep people away from Morrisound, or they wanted too much money, some shit. And it affected a lot. A lot of bands, death metal almost died that year because of some of these recordings. Even though the music was good, it needs that certain sound, and they were definitely missing from those records.
Yeah. So yeah, you ended up your time with Malevolent Creation came to an end, and then
it lasted longer than some.
Yeah. And so then in 2010 you did Upon Affliction, Inhuman. This, I thought this was just the one album, but yeah, this is the second album the band put out, but this is the only one with you on vocals. Is that right?
Yes. The first one, I believe the guy's name is Brian who did it. And actually the first Upon Affliction album is the music that was left over from Sickness. That was going to be the new Sickness.
Oh, really? Okay.
So that ended up being Upon Affliction because at the time, I think they did that record. I was in Malevolent. I was just joined Malevolent. I was in Hate Plow, and from what I heard from Gus or what people talked about, they're like they didn't want me, and it's like hey, this guy is almost singing on every record in South Florida for death metal, so they got this guy named Brian. Yep, there's Gus and Seth, and I think oh no, that's the one I'm on. Oh
yeah.
Okay, okay, all right, yeah, that's now with that record there,
And there's another Malevolent Creation link there because Gio.
Oh yeah,
went on to join Malevolent. He did the last two albums, didn't he, with the band?
Yeah, and the thing is with that record, it's that's another record that pretty much that's all Gus's thing. I only wrote lyrics to one of the songs. I think the song Blackout, the first song. But we never practiced ever because at the time I was working certain hours at my job, and by the time I would get out, I could never get over there. And so that record was pretty much we practiced and recorded the same day. So it's kind of like it's kind of punched in. It didn't really have like I like to have as much practice as possible. I think, because you can mess around with things and try things out. And unfortunately, with that record, it was very, very limited time. I think we recorded it maybe in a couple days. And, I wasn't practiced up. With Kill Division, we were in practice a long time. And, Sickness and Malevolent, we would almost practice every night. But then when I started working at this new job, I couldn't get out at certain times, so it was very rushed. And the music's good on there. I would almost like to re-record the vocals on it because I think now, since I have had more practice doing the Kill Division, keeping up with that it would sound better. And maybe that's something we can look into because I know Seth wrote the music to that, and he wrote a lot of those songs. Gus wrote the songs, and Seth wrote the songs, and maybe they'd want to do something like that in their future. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and then we come full circle to the new album, and I think That's not a bad little collection you got there. I think it's a lot to be proud of.
Realize that much. Okay, hey, look, you know what? You forget a lot about a lot of things until someone shows you a big stack. So, I'm very fortunate for all that we've done. I'm very proud of that, the Kill Division. That was recorded during the whole COVID fiasco. And I think it helped out in the long run because, the 1 week Gus would have COVID, he'd be in the hospital. He's like, so he had to recover. So I had more time to practice with, writing the songs and everything. Then I would get COVID. So, and then, somebody else's family member would get COVID. So, I was just hanging out with them. So you had all these delays. Like that was supposed to be done at the beginning of 2021. And I don't think we started recording vocals until May of 2020. And I think it was finally finished maybe in August, September. So it took 4 months to do the vocals because I'd come in, I'd do a couple songs, I'd do a couple more songs. Next week, someone's girlfriend / wife / whatever got COVID. So, you were around that person. You can't be around these people for 2 weeks and stuff like that. And it was a big mess, but it really worked out, at least I feel, to our advantage because we took our time with everything, made sure, at least vocally, I know I did. I would write a few different patterns to each song, see which one would fit the best. And and I tell Gus this, I'm like, if that's my last record, which we just recorded a song yesterday, so apparently it's not, but if that's our last like full length record that we do, because it was me and Gus's 30th year that we've, been recording something or so forth or playing from 1992 to 2022, I was like, I would be satisfied with that. You always listen back and you look back to what you released, or at least I do. And I'm like, I could have did something there better. I could have did this, or I could have done that. With that record, I feel that I had so much time that I kept looking back and, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. I feel that record, at least for me, is, perfect. So, I'm definitely very proud of that.
Awesome, man. So you finished with your perfect album, and we're getting hints that there's going to be a second one in the works. So I think that's a good place to end it and finish up there.
Okay, yeah, we got like I said, we just recorded one more track from we recorded a new track. We're going to be doing an EP because that album, I will tell you, the one thing that's kind of wrong with it is it's short. It's 24
minutes. But it is a grindcore album, so
well, we did have 30 minutes of music for that record, but it was 24 minutes of originals and 6 minutes of covers.
Okay.
But with the cover songs, you can't, all these bands, want their royalties and rights and copyrights, and we couldn't release it on there unless we had to sign over a certain amount of money or a certain amount of percentages. And we're like, this is a grindcore band. What kind of money do you think we're making here?
Yeah, you can have 10% of fuck all. Yeah.
Yeah. If they they can have 100% of fuck all. But, and so what we're doing now is we're looking into, we just recorded a new song, but then we're going to put it on a digital because we think we can release those covers digitally and it'll be okay. Once you put them on a medium, a record, a CD, a cassette, an 8-track, whatever you have, we can't, you have to sign all these agreements and everything else. But with the digital one, we could say, hey, what I believe is you're selling the one song of yours, but you're getting all these for free. So I hope that's the case because they're really good covers. It takes the punk element from, early punk days. There's a Suicidal Tendencies cover, a Minor Threat cover, and
Oh, so
even and as well, there's a Slayer cover on there, and everybody's like, "This Slayer's thrash metal," but the song that we covered is like a punkiest, stylish punk style Slayer song. If you listen to World Painted Blood, it, the riffs are punk. You know, it's a Jeff Hanneman song, and he had a lot of punk style riffs. And so we made it a grindcore song, and like we did with the others, you know, we took, you know, we were thinking about recording a lot of covers from other grindcore bands, but we're like, you know, they've already done it. So why don't we take songs that influenced grindcore bands and then make them grindcore? And the only one that we got permission for, we recorded 4 covers actually, but Pete from Terrorizer gave us permission to, and also Oscar to do the Terrorizer cover that's on the record. So
yeah, cool.
So we got that new EP coming out, and hopefully we'll play a show here and there sometime in the near future. But you know, again, you know, we're having fun with it. It's music we enjoy to do. So once the fun goes out of it, that's when I throw in the white towel. So,
well, I hope that's not for a while yet. So, well, thanks for joining me, Carl. And yeah, I'm loving this album, and it's getting good feedback. It seems everyone's excited. Everyone's glad to see you back in action as well. So yeah, hopefully this picks up and, you know, becomes a thing go for the next couple of years.
Yeah, I hope so. I'm really happy with all the feedback and the reviews it's getting, and you know, I hope that people get a, you know, chance to listen to it. It's only 24 minutes, so even if you don't like it, it's like, fuck, 24 minutes out of your life, that ain't too shit. So, you know,
yeah, exactly.
You could write on social media and say, hey, you wasted 24 of my minutes. But other than that,
between Dirk and Jeremy and Gus, I'm sure somehow you may even wrangle a tour out of it, supporting someone pretty cool. So you never know if the right arrangements can be made.
You know, what we would hope in a perfect world to try to get at least a couple festivals or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. What's that major death metal festival I keep seeing everyone playing? Something Death Fest. Yeah.
In the Maryland Death Fest.
Yeah, maybe that.
You know what? I mean, I've been, and this will probably have to be on Gus's side because he's still connected with a lot of people there. You know, I have no idea, you know, booking agents or this or that. I mean, everybody that I dealt with, they're out of the game these days. So I don't really, you know,
I think you'll have whatever band Jeremy's in and whatever band Gus is in. They'll be on tour, so they'll fly in, do sets with their band, and you can just turn up and do the half hour on a stage one thing, and then you can go home, and then they'll go back on tour with each band that they're in.
Yeah, I look. You know what? That's the reason. That's how we got our damn band photo. That's how hard it is to get everybody there. Jeremy lives in Tampa. Gus played a death tribute in Tampa with James Murphy called Spiritual Healing.
Yes, I saw the stream of that. Yeah.
And Dirk was a part of that. He was playing in the band. I think they called the band Symbolic, but Dirk was the drummer for, like, Gus was handling the spiritual healing, the earth side of death, and then you had Dirk on drums for the, you know, from human on side of death. And that's what it took just to get a fucking band photo for Kill Division, because everybody was there.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it took all that. It took all this preparation just to get a band photo. So to do a show, it's a lot of work. I hope we played a show already. We had Seth, who's the guitar player for Upon Affliction, do the bass. And again, Ronnie from Malevolent Creation, and a crazy list of other bands that he drums for. He did the drums. They did a great job.
He's in Brutality now as well, isn't he?
Shit, he was in Brutality, Amon, Malevolent, just a list of bands, and he kicks ass in all of them. it sounded really good when we played live. So that is probably going to be our live, when we do shows here or there, are probably our live lineup. But I would love to at least do one show with the record lineup,
Yeah.
somehow, because I think everybody did an amazing job on that record, from recording to mixing to playing. So I hope that one day we do a show like that. So
Yeah, I think I'm seeing Gus actually in April. I'm seeing Left to Die. The
okay,
same thing with Spiritual Healing, but they're doing less Leprosy.
yeah,
And
if
I'm
you
pretty sure Gus is drumming for that.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
he's
Yeah.
I saw that show, like I was telling him, I was like, man, you know what, I don't really go out to too many shows these days, but the last two death metal shows I saw were death metal covers, like either Left to Die or Spiritual Healing. And I'm like, that's been it. I need to
Oh,
go
you
see.
seen both? You was at the Spiritual Healing show. Yeah, right. So I paid to see the stream of it.
Yeah. Oh, you're gonna love Left to Die, because if you love the scream, bloody gore, leprosy, um, era of death, then you're gonna love it.
Yeah, I love the whole thing. Yeah, so I'm gonna.
Yeah, they I was skeptical when I went to go see it, but after I saw Spiritual Healing, I was like, man. And then Left to Die came out, and they were doing the show. I was like, Jesus Christ, how many more cover bands? But that it just shows how iconic that guy's music was, Chuck Schuldiner's music was, that you could have like almost like at least 4 cover bands out there now, or 3 cover bands, and a band that was influenced them with Gruesome. I mean, you have so many
Yeah,
bands.
so you've got Symbolic, you've got, that's a tribute band, but then you've got Death to All, which
Yep.
is like a combination of all different members, but now you've got like the 4 main sort of solidified. They started out concentrating on Human, then they concentrated on Symbolic, but now they cover the whole spectrum really. I interviewed Gene a few weeks ago for a magazine, and he said like we at least try and do 2 songs from each album. At the very least, we'll do 2,
Oh,
and they've even played stuff that Death never played at this
yeah.
point. Then you had Spiritual Healing and Left to Die and Gruesome, which is obviously inspired. So yeah, but I'm all right with it. I could I'd watch every one night after the other if it was down to me, and I'd hire, if as soon as I win the lottery, I'm hiring all of them. I'm booking a venue for a week, and I'll be like, right, night 1 you're doing Scream Bloody Gore, night 2 you're doing Leprosy. We're gonna do the whole thing.
Yeah, the when you see Left to Die, when they first started playing, it's like, man, you're gonna get into it. I mean, I saw Death once in my life, and it was at a Milwaukee Metal Fest, and it was during the Sound of Perseverance tour.
Yeah,
and the sound was shit. They played 10 songs, and I think 1 song from Leprosy. So it's like, I missed out on a lot. Like every time I play South Florida, I wasn't there. I couldn't make it. Something happened. But I did get to see him at least once. But then when I saw Left to Die, especially Left to Die recently, that was it's definitely killer. You're gonna enjoy the hell out of that.
Yeah, cool, man. Right, well, it's been good talking to you, Carl, and I'll let you get on.
Yeah. Well, next time you me, get a little bit more crazy questions so I could talk shit about people.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So yeah, we'll get you back on soon at some point. Hopefully, when you got something new out, or if you just want to come on, we got loads of stuff we could have talked about. We wanted to talk about horror, but we've run out of time. But if you want to just talk about music in general, or if you want to do a retrospective with me, if you watch my channel, I do retrospective shows where I take a band and go for the whole back catalogue. You can join me on one of them. Just the guest always chooses the band anyway, and yeah, we're in touch anyway on Facebook, so I'll speak to you soon, regardless.
Yeah,
so.
Just let me know, man. I know it took a little bit to get this, together and everything, but the holidays always throws a wrench into everything. But for the rest of the year, it's the same old shit. So get in touch whenever, man.
Yeah, right. So, Kill Division, Peace Through Tyranny on Redefining Darkness Records. Go get it. No excuses. Right. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you made it to the end, give us one of them. And I'll see you all next time. Thanks a lot. Thanks for watching.